What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, there are updates, and there are many of them. We're talking Aaron Rodgers and where things currently stand, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers might be getting a little fed up with waiting for their quarterback to be. Meanwhile, a running back is making noise over a birthday post. Two big names got signed last night shortly after the day ended for most people. And, well, it's Tuesday. Aaron Rodgers still isn't in the building. The Pittsburgh Steelers still don't know exactly who their quarterback's going to be. We've got updates on it. We've got sources on the situation. But we still got Overreaction Tuesday to sit here and say what's real and what is not. It's a glorious one here in the city of Pittsburgh. It's been beautiful for the past week or so. Love and life. Shout out to, listen to this, okay? This is how we're going to start this show. I discovered something phenomenal in the last 48 hours, okay? Me and the boys decided we're going to be skinny this summer. That's what we're going to do. And if the boys are getting skinny, I'm not going to be the fat friend. I've never been the fat friend. I can't start now. You know, I'm married. The world is working against me in this situation, but I'm determined not to lose. Coffee is my biggest downfall because I drink 7 coffees a day, you know, and that's an exaggeration. Some days it's not, others. Needed something to get rid of like the latte, milk, blah, 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 whole billion calorie thing. Cold brew with a pump of vanilla. Keeps it sweet. Doesn't taste like a cold brew. Feels fantastic. I don't know if I'm late to the party here, but I think I would have been skinny a long time ago if I just knew this was a thing. I hope you're having as good of a day as I am, because life changer and in a good way.
I mean, I'm having a good day, not as good as you. You found your new drink. Me, on the other hand, water with a splash of ice gets me going throughout the day. So I'm not in the same grouping as you, but I have my vices. I have my vices that I need to stay away from to avoid the wedding weight, as you will.
Yeah. You did give me you gave me a warning for a long time that said, actually, it was when I was preparing to get fat after the wedding, you were getting skinny. And I was like, dude, you're married. And you're like, you'll realize. I have.
You'll feel it.
I've come to realize, whew, all right, pants are a little snug. It's time to turn the clock back. We're doing all right. And once again, shout out to Tazos Coffee, because pump of vanilla, man, gets you through the day. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. There's a lot going on. They made 2 signings last night. Cordarrelle Patterson's freaking out online about a birthday post. Shout out. Happy birthday, Cordarrelle Patterson, man. Hope he's having a good one or had a good one. And maybe the Aaron Rodgers situation has run its course to a point where it's actually starting to bother people on NFL rosters and on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster in particular. We'll start with as many news and notes as we could possibly put on a Post-it note. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Yeah, let's start with business, then we'll get to all the drama first. The Pittsburgh Steelers added 2 names, one new, one kind of familiar to the organization on the defensive side of the football yesterday, signing safety Juan Thornhill and defensive lineman Isiahh Loudermilk, both inked to 1-year deals with the Steelers organization.
Yeah, I mean, Juan Thornhill's a big one. That's the one to me is I was aiming for Marcus Williams. I said yesterday on the show that we should talk about today safeties that the Pittsburgh Steelers should sign. Well, this is why you don't wait. I thought Marcus Williams was a great name to watch. I thought Julian Blackmon was another name that really could have brought the Pittsburgh Steelers up a little bit. I would imagine both of those are more expensive than what Thornhill is going to be. And I like the Thornhill move. I think it's an upgrade over DeMonte KZ, bigger guy, capable of playing both behind Minkah Fitzpatrick and Deshaun Elliott, which I think helps a lot in the Steelers defense. You needed to make adjustments at a number of positions. And the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones on defense, is who was going to be that third safety. Who was going to replace DeMonte KZ, because you couldn't run it back with the same guy. Essentially, you fell into the Larry O situation, that tier of player that, okay, it's run its course. It had good results, but we need better results. We need to take this thing to the next level. That's what the Steelers got here in Juan Thornhill. I think that move in particular is great. It really sets up the Pittsburgh Steelers to finish their defense in the draft and just say, Okay, we just now need a defensive tackle. Besides that, we're good. We're set. We're ready to go for the 2025 season. Wish it would have been for a longer deal. Would have liked a 2-year deal to add some certainty going into 2026, especially if he has a big year with Pittsburgh. But at the same time, beggars can't be choosers. I think Thornhill's a good move. Loudermilk in my eyes is an easy one. You know, he comes in here to just be that last piece that if Logan Lee isn't good, Isiahh Loudermilk's reliable. That's totally fine. I don't see him as a primary backup. I think Ikuale is the new guy there. I think DeMarvin Leal's going to get a shot, but DeMarvin Leal suffered a neck injury last year. You never know what's going to happen with those. You never know how long it's going to take to heal, or if a player's going to come back 100%, or if they're going to come back at all. You just never know what's going on in those situations. For Marv, you got to hope the best, and he's going to get a shot. I think things started to click last year before the injury. Isiahh Loudermilk's just the final piece to the depth chart. That's all he is. You know, you no longer have to have Logan Lee come in here and be a guy that has to make the roster no matter what. You know, you no longer have to try to go out and get Braden Fajoko or whoever late in the summer just to fill a roster spot. You now have them across the board. They're all looking good. I think both these names are exactly what the Steelers needed in different ways, and quality depth to really round out. I mean, you could look at the offense and say, you didn't sign a quarterback. This is a terrible offseason. You can't disagree with that. You look at the defensive side of the football, Pittsburgh Steelers, they did pretty all right. They did pretty all right in free agency.
All right, let's get to some of the drama here, starting with Cordarrelle Patterson, because the tension is thick between the Steelers and their third running back. He posted about his lack of playing time in the playoffs a few months ago, saying, quote, "I'll shovel snow since I can't touch the field." Well, he's updated on his grievances with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now he's upset about his birthday post from the organization. Quote, "Damn, I couldn't even get a post on the page. LOL. Y'all know something that I don't know?" Something tells me that Cordarrelle's not happy with his organization right now.
Look, I'm always pro player, even when it comes to birthday posts. Post the man's birthday and wish him well. Here's the thing. They just put it on their story. They said, "You're our third round running back, man. We don't need to put this thing on the front page of our Instagram for like 11 people to like it." Like, Cordarrelle Patterson's a Hall of Fame candidate at some point in his NFL future, and is a guy that's so well respected across the league. Like, dude, you're 34 years old. What are we doing? Why is this twice? Why is this twice that on Instagram you have just been a little bit too aggressive towards the Pittsburgh Steelers, towards the people who pay your contract, and in an offseason where, like, you're not particularly safe. And I don't know what the next option is for Cordarrelle Patterson. I don't know if there are going to be teams jumping out the woodwork saying, "We need Cordarrelle, man. That's what we need." This one's bad. This one looks really bad. If we're going to be very honest, this one looks bad. Cordarrelle looks really bad in this situation. It's a birthday post, dude. You're 34 years old. What are we doing? We were on this show. Not a single person wished either of us a happy birthday. Nobody put up a post. I didn't think my mom put up a post for my birthday. I'm not over here complaining. You know, come on. Sometimes, what are we doing? There's just the shovel and snow one, still ridiculous, but, you know, has some ground to stand on. This is a birthday post. You're 34 years old. What are we talking about?
There's over 140 bridges in Pittsburgh. Pick one and get over it, dude. Nobody cares that you didn't get a birthday post on the page as opposed to the Instagram story. I mean, I understand these grievances. Whenever you're a guy that's played that many years in the NFL and your team's getting just shellacked in a playoff game, yeah, I'd be upset that I was not given the opportunity to go out there and change anything that happened. But at the same time, this just seems like sour grapes.
Yeah, what are we? Again, how many 34-year-olds you know who even want to be wished happy birthday? Very
I don't tell
few.
People when my birthday is.
Exactly.
90% of the time.
Exactly. What do we do? Wild. This one looks bad.
All right. Well, there's somebody else on the Steelers that wants to share some grievances, and this one, Cam Heyward on the Not Just Football podcast with Cam Heyward. The All-Pro defensive tackle says, "I'm not playing recruiter anymore." His exact quote was, quote, "I ain't doing the darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. If you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, It's no skin off my back.
Look it. You gotta take Cam for his word in different ways. The first one is, I don't think this is as aggressive as it came off to be. I don't think Cam is looking at this saying, I don't want Aaron Rodgers. Screw this guy making us wait. I don't think that's the case. But I do think at the same time, there's an understanding of like, look at dude, you're a 41-year-old quarterback. Like, we're not going out to get Patrick Mahomes and trying to convince him to come wherever. You know, I FaceTimed Russell Wilson last year. You want to know what the pitch was? We're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're here, and we're going to try to win. Do you want to come be part of this? And yes. Okay. He understands that. I think everybody understands that. I think everybody in Pittsburgh understands fully 100% that if you rule out the Vikings, which you have to rule out the Vikings. Like, nobody could sit here and say the Vikings are in play for Aaron Rodgers. No, they're not. The Rodgers is in play for the Vikings, but the Vikings are not in play for Aaron Rodgers. And if you rule that out and just look at it for what it is, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants both have offers on the table for Aaron Rodgers, it is clear as day what this comes down to. Do you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler? Do you want to have an opportunity to win? Do you want to be a team that goes to the playoffs every year? Do you want to be a team that doesn't need a savior? We just need an Aaron Rodgers. We just need Aaron Rodgers to be Aaron Rodgers. We don't need anybody to come and change the entire destiny and fate of this football team. The football team's put together. It needs a quarterback. Do you want to be that? Or do you want to go to the New York Giants where you're going to make more money, where there's going to be more publicity, where your name's going to be bigger, but you're going to suck and the team's going to suck? And I think that's how the Steelers kind of view this. Look, from the things I have seen, heard, the whole nine, like throughout this entire saga, what it comes down to very simply, in my eyes, and this is what I think Cam is kind of making a point of, is the Steelers are not budging for Aaron Rodgers. They're not sitting here saying, we are going to give in to whatever madness you are trying to present us with, to whatever poor negotiating tactic you are trying to use or your side's trying to use. And I don't know if Aaron's actually doing that or not, but you have to assume that something's happening, that this is obviously not as easy as Steelers versus Giants. Pick one, that there's got to be something else in there. And the Steelers are not budging. Offers on the table, take it or you don't. Cam's kind of saying the same thing. Offers on the table, you take it or you don't. You know, do you view it any different? Like, if Aaron Rodgers showed up in Pittsburgh, it's not like the Steelers are going to be upset about it. It's not like anybody's going to sit here in the locker room and say, Aaron, I can't believe you took forever to sign with. I'm pissed at you. Why are you my quarterback? No, they're going to be thrilled. Cam Heyward's going to be thrilled to have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback in 2025. That gives him a shot to win a Super Bowl. I don't think that's the case. I don't think this is burning bridges. I do think that it is abundantly clear at this point that the part of this that has run its course is the idea that anything is going to change. Nothing's changing. This is Pittsburgh Steelers offers there. New York Giants offers there. Aaron's got to decide. It keeps coming up with reports of and new news and updates of, this is why this isn't happening. This is the number that Aaron wants to get to. This is the team that Aaron wants to be on. When it comes very simply back to the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's plain as day. This is your offer. Take it or leave it. Come join us or don't. We'd love to have you, but that's as good as you're going to get from us. I think that's the part that's run. That's why this seems so ridiculous is not the word, but just like at first there was like, oh, this guy's got this big major life decision to make, you know, and that big major life decision was huge. I think we've kind of come to the point of like, look, this is just what it is. We're just waiting on this guy. You know, he knows what the options are. We're just waiting on him. Do you feel any differently? Do you think that Cam like genuinely is upset about the situation?
No, I don't think Cam's genuinely upset. I think Cam's sitting here saying, I'm not going to beg and plead on my hands and knees for anybody to come to Pittsburgh. Like, if Cam looks at the Steelers and holds the Steelers as just an emblem, as an idea, as the highest standard possible. That's the way Cam Heyward believes in the Steelers, and that's the way a lot of the guys in the organization, a lot of guys on the team view the Steelers. The one thing that I think Cam wanted to do on that podcast is highlight that this is not desperation, it's patience, and you shouldn't mix the two. The Steelers are being patient with Aaron Rodgers, but he doesn't want there to be a thought process that the Steelers are desperate for Aaron Rodgers. That's the message that, to me, was conveyed by Cam Heyward, and it's a message that, gives me a little bit of faith, because the last thing you want your team to be is desperate, especially at that position. So, yeah, someone on the outside might view it as desperate. I might lean that way from time to time, but I like the fact that Cam's coming out here saying, hey, it's not desperate, it's patience, and whoever's in the building will ride. It's kind of the same thing as the Darius Slay situation when somebody asked him, you were fighting these guys in December, and he said, yeah, but now we're on the same team, so we're going to jump everybody else. Like, if Aaron comes in, there's not an issue. Like, they will all be on the same side. They will all be working to the same goal. So I understand why a lot of people would say, hey, Cam's saying that he doesn't want Rodgers. No, he's not saying that at all. He's saying, I'm not dealing with the BS. The offer's on the table. If you want to be here, and we'll ride it out. If you don't, then you're not here, and who cares?
Yep, exactly. That's exactly it. Like, the Steelers have never the Steelers are desperate for a quarterback. That's a thing. That they're hunting for a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. They're the last team without a quarterback. Like, if he doesn't sign, it's Mason Rudolph time, maybe Joe Flacco time. Could be going back to Russ for the second time when you've exhausted all options. All options. That's desperate. But in this situation, they're not desperate for Aaron Rodgers. They're not sitting here, just like you said, nobody's sitting around saying like, oh man, we need you. They put it out there and they said, look, we clearly know we're the better option here. Are you going to take us or are you just not? That's your call. If you don't want that, we're good. We'll go in a different direction. According to Josina Anderson, though, the Steelers feel pretty confident that things are headed in the right direction. And in my eyes, I took that as that's awesome, but it doesn't mean they're close. Doesn't mean that the two sides are near a deal or anything else. I took it as this. This is somewhat of an interpretation of things I've been told, somewhat an interpretation of reports that have come out, somewhat an interpretation of how I just truly don't believe the Vikings are in play for Aaron Rodgers. I look at it all and just say, again, we've hit a point where the Steelers are not budging, okay? Any attempt by Rodgers and his side to negotiate a better deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers or from the Pittsburgh Steelers is dried up. It's done. It's over. This is what you got. This is the deal. This is the offer on the table. Now it's time to decide. And I think that's what it was. I think it was days of, I have to make my decision. My decision's big. The decision didn't take a week. Let's be very honest here. The decision did not. Aaron Rodgers wasn't sitting around for a whole week with that much to think about between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. That wasn't it. If retirement was in play, different situation. But he told the Jets that he wanted to play. So at no point did it seem like that was like a really big part of this consideration. That didn't take a whole week. What I would imagine is that at some point it turned into, okay, let's see if we can get more money from the Steelers. Let's see if we can get more money from the Giants. Let's see who could raise their price. And if it's a big enough gap that at the end of it, it just makes too much sense to go to the Steelers or to go to the Giants because I'm going to get paid way more money. Let's see if that happened. And I would imagine that's what the last couple of days were when it went radio silent. And then they started talking again. And I think Rodgers has realized they're not budging, they're not going anywhere. And I think the Steelers' optimism is growing because you look at Aaron Rodgers and the whole situation, and they've realized he's out of turns. He's got nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do here. It's just make a decision. And they fully understand that they are the better decision. They know that that's the case here. So I look at Josina's report. I look at the optimism simply as that. I don't think that anything has changed. I really just believe that Aaron has run his course and that they, didn't budge, realized Aaron respected that, because that's the part of this that nobody wants to talk about is if Aaron was negotiating and things went, the Steelers didn't budge and that went south, we'd all know that it went south. we would all be fully aware that the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers are more distant than they were. That's not the case. It still remains Steelers are the favorite. Steelers are the favorite, which means that there has to be some sort of respect level there to just acknowledge, all right, you're not going to budge. And I think that's why the Steelers feel closer to this resolution. When will it happen? I mean, I doubt it happens today. I doubt it happens today. I doubt it happens tomorrow. Maybe this week at some point. But I mean, that's how I view this. It has nothing to do with conversations that say, man, I'm leaning towards you guys. I think it's just nothing's changed. Every party involved has realized nothing's going to change, which means that the last thing left to do is make a decision here by Aaron Rodgers.
Late last week, it got a little quiet, and that's where I kind of disagree to your points, is it feels like retirement was on the table. Like, when I look at everything in totality, I think that Aaron Rodgers wanted to right the wrongs that happened with the Jets. And he said, listen, I'm coming back. I'm ready to play. I don't want to retire. I want to play with the Jets. And the Jets looked at him and said, no, you're done. Mm-hmm. Like, we're done. We're done with you. I think at that point, you have to reevaluate, especially if you're a guy like Aaron Rodgers. This isn't somebody who's been a journeyman his entire career. This is somebody who built a legacy in Green Bay and thought he was going to further that legacy in New York. You have to have a lot of questions of, what does my legacy look like with a third team? How careful do I have to be with choosing that third team? Or is it better that I just take a step back and take a step away now? Is it better that I just leave what happened and walk away with whatever I have and don't further damage that legacy? So I think there was serious consideration to him wanting to retire. And I think that's why you didn't really hear very many updates all of last week, is that's what he was weighing. Now, of course, you put out the report that they had a discussion early this week. I think that is when he made the decision of, I want to play. Now let's figure out where. So that's, in my opinion, the timeline. And again, that's just from my observations, my personal opinion. But I think that retirement was a bigger part of this than you're giving credence to.
Okay. So where's your timeline go from here? If retirement's off the table, the Steelers aren't going to budge, and I could kind of confirm that the Steelers, and I don't think I'm alone on that one. I think every Steelers reporter has made it very known that everything we've heard, everything we've been told is the Steelers are not budging. They're not going to sit here and make some big splashy, crazy offer just to go get them. So where's your timeline go from here? Is it retirement's, I want to play. We're good. I mean, I get that the Steelers are not this prime elite organization, but they're better than the Giants. They're definitely better than the Giants. Is that what he's contemplating? Are we still waiting on this? Is a decision made and he's just, where does it go from here? What's the timeline from here?
I would think if he has reached out to both organizations, it's a matter of getting best offer, final offer from all parties involved. And once he gets that, I think a decision is made. So I don't think this is something that's going to last until the draft. I said last week when we were talking about this, that I'd be surprised if it wasn't done in 2 weeks. We are, just at the beginning of that first week? I would say that, just, again, no inside information involved, but my personal belief based on what I've seen in the situation, that this is something that should get done. There's no other reason other for it not to get done at some point here in the next week.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it does, because Jesus.
Dude, to be honest, I'm having fun with it. I keep telling you guys, I'm having a good time. I'm living in Aaron Rodgers' life, and I didn't realize that I was now, don't get me wrong, I'm exhausted. You could ask anybody I've texted with over the last week and a half. I am making no sense through these text messages. I had a buddy call me yesterday. We were talking for 10 minutes, and he goes, tell me what we were just talking about. I had no idea, not a clue at all. But I'm having a great time with this. I'm having a great time. I don't think it goes to the draft either. What's the final question that I have on this, I feel? What's the gap need to be for the Giants? What's it have to be? The Steelers aren't going to budge. They're not going to make some big splashy offer. If they did, everything that I've been told is a lie. Everything that I have been reported to report to you guys has been misinformation. And if that's the case, I apologize. And I am stunned that I'm wrong. I don't think the Steelers are gonna budge. What are the Giants, what's the gap got to be for this to be okay, got to go to the Giants?
The only one that can truly answer that is Rodgers, but I'll try my best here. I think it's years, because you heard reports of 3 years from the Vikings. I don't think the Steelers want to do that. I don't think the Steelers want to say, let's put stock in this guy till he's 44 years old. I think the Steelers are probably looking at this as another 1-year deal. As much as they hated the fact that they did a 1-year deal or 2 1-year deals and it didn't work out, then I don't think they're going to end up doing a multi-year deal with an Aaron Rodgers. So I think it comes down to if the Giants will give him 2 or 3 years versus the Steelers giving him 1.
Okay. That is an interesting turn there. I did not see that answer coming, but I like it. I like it. The Steelers are not going to give more than a 1-year deal. Maybe they'd give it 2. I doubt it. Maybe they'd give it 2. I think even if they sign Aaron Rodgers, the chances of them drafting quarterback are growing by the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Aaron Rodgers situation and where we are right now and how long this is taking is even like warranting that even more to them just going, we've got to get out of this. Like we've got to, this is bad, man. We've got to get on with this. The year's thing's interesting. We'll see. It continues. Aaron Rodgers' watch is not ending anytime soon. If it does, you'll hear about it here first. I promise you that. We'll be locked, loaded, and ready to go. And I mean, I don't care where I could be. I really don't care, dude. I could be driving on the Autobahn going 110. You're getting a video. It's happening. The news is breaking on All Steelers Talk. But that's all we got for today, which means that it's time for an Aaron Rodgers edition, a post-free agency first wave edition of my favorite segment of the entire week, maybe in the whole world, one of my favorite things ever, Overreaction Tuesday. Let's get into it.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business, and sometimes it's very subtle.
All right, Nick, it's got to be a good one. I'm excited for this. What do we got?
Yeah, I got a couple. We got a couple really good ones from the listeners. We'll kick it off with mine, though. First and foremost, Darius Slay and Joey Porter Jr. is the best cornerback duo in Pittsburgh since Rod Woodson and Chad Brown in 1996.
Big yikes on this one. I'm pushing back. I got to push back. Now look at, there's understands here. Like you could make the argument. I think it's better than anybody that Ike Taylor's ever played with. I think that this is the best duo Joey Porter's ever played with. I think Darius Slay is an animal. I think he's an absolute stud. I think Joey Porter's an absolute stud. I think they have potential to prove me wrong here. But that first year of Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson was great. And they were dominant. And that was the first time in my entire lifetime that you felt like the Steelers had a really good cornerback core and that they were able to beat anybody. And this is the second time that I've ever felt this way, ever. But I think it's an overreaction simply because you got to give credit where credit's due, respect to Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson, who were two great dudes while they were here in Pittsburgh. I'm going to give them the credit that they're due here. I'm going overreaction, but I do think there's potential to prove me wrong here. I do think there's potential, but I got to see it before I believe it.
All right, let's go to the next one here. The addition of Daniel Ikuale plus a draft pick in the first 3 rounds will allow Keanu Benton to move to defensive end and have a Pro Bowl season in 2025.
Oh, a Pro Bowl season for Keanu Benton. I'll say this. The fact that the Steelers have not drafted anybody means that they are either going all in on defensive tackle in the NFL draft, but at the same time, they're confident Keanu Benton can take that step up and be the guy in 2025 if he needs to be, because that's what they'll do. They'll move him over. They'll figure out nose tackle. If Montravius Adams has to start there, if a third round pick has to start there, they'll make it work. That's not the worst position in the world to have to replace. But at the same time, Pro Bowl season for Keanu Benton here. I like it. I don't think this is an overreaction. I think Keanu Benton's a stud. I think people talked badly about him last year and tried to come up with reasons as to why he wasn't as productive as he was. He was playing nose tackle. Okay. Larry Ogunjobi was taking up the snaps. You give him the snaps, I think he makes some noise. I think he looked good last year too. I think by the end of the season, Keanu Benton was a contributor that you could count on. I'm a big Keanu guy. I think he's got a bright future. Might as well start this year. I'm going to say that's not an overreaction. I think very difficult, but I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that's not an overreaction.
All right, I got one more for you. Kenneth Gainwell Kenny G will set a new career high in all-purpose yards this season. His current career high in single season is 547.
Oh, I think that one's an overreaction. I think Kenny G's cool, man. And I've watched that clip 75 times over the last 3 days. You know, I have not stopped actually, but I don't think that I still think he's running back 3 in Pittsburgh. I still think he's going to end up being running back 3. I think they're going to find somebody. That somebody's going to emerge as the running back 2. He's going to be listed as the running back 3 because this is Pittsburgh and this is what you do. But he's going to get the reps as a running back 3 or a running back 2. And bare minimum, he's going to get the reps as a running back 2B, which means he's still splitting time with Kenny G, Kenneth Gainwell. I think that's a lot of yards to ask for somebody. You know, that's a lot of yards for a backup running back. But at the same time, Jalen is a little dude. It's tough to stay healthy as a bell cow back that small. I think I don't think, you know what? I pull back. I don't think this is an overreaction. Do I think it's likely? No. But do I think it's an overreaction? Definitely not. I think that it's possible that it could happen when you think about it logically. Do I predict it's going to happen? No, but not an overreaction.
All right, we got a couple listener ones that I want to get to, starting with 42 Steck, who says Mason the Red-Nosed Reindeer will take the Steelers to the AFC Championship.
Oh, that is an overreaction. Shout out Mason, man. Hope he's doing well. Excited to interview him for the first time in what's been a year, and I think he's been a true professional his entire time in Pittsburgh. Big fan of Mason Rudolph as a person. Think he, good guy. Not going to win you a Super Bowl. Not going to beat Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. Not going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Not going to beat Josh Allen in the playoffs. And if somehow you luck yourself into not having to play any of those guys before you get to the AFC Championship game, anything is possible. Anything's possible. But there's too much fighting against him right now to say that that's not an overreaction. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers. You've got the potential of a Jackson Dart coming in the first round. And you've got the AFC, which is a pretty good place to play. Plus, you got to think that like CJ Stroud's coming back, and he's gonna bounce back after a sophomore slump. Bo Nix looks real good. Najee Harris just went to LA, which means that they still got a running game. Maybe they could pull something off, although I'm not super confident in it. I don't know, man. It's gonna be good. AFC looks very good this year, and the Steelers, unfortunately, do not look like the team that's going to be competing for a spot in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to say that one's an overreaction.
Let's move over to Jessica, who says the Steelers are slowly losing respect in the NFL with recent articles about culture and missing out on pivotal pieces the last 2 years. Last year, it was wide receivers. This year, it is quarterbacks who are choosing to go elsewhere.
I don't know. It's tough. I think the Steelers are not losing their culture. I think what's happening is social media is much bigger. The media presence in the sports world is much bigger. Like we come to you guys every single day for an hour. We're giving you all I tell you stuff I should never tell you. And that's, that didn't always happen. Could you imagine what would be going on when AB was around? The best video that anybody has of AB is from like Kaboli's flip phone where he comes up with random words. And that didn't go on Twitter, And if it did, the 11 people on Twitter had a great time with it, but that was it. That's as far as we got. I think that's where this is going. I think that it's looking worse because of these situations. I will say at the same time, though, if this was always the Steelers culture, players are getting smarter. And because of that, it's getting more players want to compete for a Super Bowl. The Steelers look like a Super Bowl team 6 years ago. The way they stand here today, people are starting to realize they're not. And I think that's the difference. I think you have run out of your Super Bowl card as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And because of that, people don't want to be here anymore. I wouldn't say it's because of the culture. I think the culture in Pittsburgh is great. I think it's the winning edge that they do not have right now.
All right, let's go to Brandon. You got to stick with me on this one because it is conspiracy theory time. Brandon says the Steelers won't admit it, but they're subtly tanking so they can draft Arch Manning next year in the Berg. They gave DK a long-term deal so they have stability at wide receiver, but they haven't signed any other impact players despite the cap room to not affect their comp picks and provide them max draft flexibility in 2026. They will build out their core and the other side of the trenches in the draft and have a fully loaded ship ready for Arch to pilot next year.
I look at, I don't think I think it's an overreaction in the terms of tanking. I don't think the Steelers would ever tank. That's just, I don't know, man. I think I'm around these people too much to like understand, like TJ Watt would murder you if you told him, I think you're tanking. I think you're tanking. I think Omar Khan would be fired in 2 seconds if Art Rooney learned that he had even a thought of tanking. Mike Tomlin doesn't even know what the word tanking is. You know what I mean? He doesn't, that's not even a definite, there's no definition of tanking. Loser. That's probably what he says. But them preparing for an Arch Manning, them preparing for a Drew Aller or whoever comes out of Tennessee or LSU, them preparing for that type of guy, that's not an overreaction. Because that's where the Steelers are exactly, actually. They are at a place where they are building it all around him because they know they don't have him. And they got to go get him. And they're either going to go get him this year or next year or maybe both. But they're going to build everything else they possibly can, plug it all in, get it all ready so that all they have to do is add a quarterback, add their quarterback. I don't think that part's an overreaction. I think that part's true, to be honest. The Steelers are building this thing. And just like they've done in a number of different ways, you know, the secondary, the inside linebackers, the offensive line, they just take it piece by piece, and they've done it all. Now they got to go get a quarterback. And yeah, I don't think that side of it's an overreaction. The tanking side's an overreaction. The rest of it, spot on, actually. Spot on.
Let's go to Carl Spackler, who says Aaron Rodgers is a human at the crossroads of a very difficult decision in his life. All football fans trying to rush his decision should stop, even if other people's decisions are affected by it.
I agree with that on a personal level. I do agree with that. I think there's both underreaction and overreaction to this statement, because the overreaction is, if you're doing it mildly, if you're doing it in a sense of business, at some point, the entire NFL, doesn't matter who you are, can't wait forever for you. You gotta make a decision. You gotta make a call. These are people's livelihoods at stake. And that's the thing here, is this is not just Aaron Rodgers' life that is within Aaron Rodgers' hands. This is Russell Wilson. This is Jameis Winston. This is Joe Flacco. This is Mason Rudolph. This is Jackson Dart. This is Tyler Shuck. This is so many people. The trickle-down effect that comes with this is huge. So I think that part's an overreaction. I think that at some point, yeah, you have to make a big decision, and you have to give a man or anybody the respect to make that decision and make it in a comfortable manner. Sometimes you get a little greedy with it. I think we're crossing the line of greedy. You know, once it's been a week and a half almost, we've hit the point of, all right, you know, at some point you gotta take other people's situation into account here. It's not like Aaron's got no idea that Jameis Winston doesn't have a job right now because of him. But I think that side of it's an overreaction. I think that if you do it respectfully and you don't lash out on the guy, telling him that he needs to hurry up is reasonable. At the same time, I 100% agree that, you know, this is a very, very difficult decision if includes retirement, and you got to respect how difficult it is.
Let's close out Overreaction Tuesday with this. Pittsburgh Hornet says, overreaction or not, let you be the judge. Minkah Fitzpatrick will have a bigger impact this next season than he did last year.
Well, yeah, I think that's not an overreaction. I think I would say this is not an overreaction every year until Minkah's gone. My assumption every year going into the year is Minkah's going to be better. He's going to be fine. Yeah, he's going to have a good year. I can't turn away from that. Will it happen? We'll see. But that is not an overreaction. Minkah will always have my support as a guy that I think can overcome this. It just, you know, is he gonna? We'll see on the field.
That's a wrap for Overreaction Tuesday.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys as always. These are fun. I'm glad that they're back. I missed them for the short period that they were gone, and appreciate you guys. All right, let's finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to answer all your questions, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We appreciate you guys as always. Shout out to all of our members and to all of our super chatters. Can't tell you guys how much we appreciate you. With that said, Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with Jeff, who wants to know, if we can't get a second-round pick for GP, you should just keep him. Hope he's motivated, and then likely get a third-round comp pick for him in 2026.
Look, I agree with this situation as long as he's willing to pay or play. If he's willing to play on the final year of his deal, and there's no holdout coming, and there are no issues, and there's no locker room stuff, and he's going to show up for practice and the whole nine, go get a third-round comp pick for him next year. I'm totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. I think, yeah, you're playing the long game, but playing the long game works. I think that's totally fine. The second that he says, I'm not playing under a deal or without a deal, the second that he says, I'm not showing up to training camp or OTAs or whatever, you got to move him. You got to move on. There's no negotiation to be had. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to pay George Pickens. They just signed DK Metcalf. They don't have a quarterback. They're not signing 2 wide receivers to say, we'll just figure out the rest later. That's totally fine. I don't see that happening. I look at it very, very simply and say, if he's willing to play without any negotiations, cool, keep him. Why wouldn't you keep him? But if he's not willing to play and he wants a deal and he's not going to show up without one, you got to move on from him.
Let's go to Miguel, who says, run with Rudolph, tank and blow it up at the trade deadline. Steelers fans deserve better. New head coach, OC, DC next season on a timeline with a star rookie quarterback.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, buddy, but the Steelers would not fire Mike Tomlin. Most likely Arthur Smith. Terrell Austin probably at some point is gonna end up gone because his contract's gonna run out, and that's just what they do. But they're not gonna blow it up. It's not going to happen. And to be very honest with you, like, the Steelers fans do deserve better. I agree with this one, but I just explained it, and I'll explain it again. Like, I've explained it a dozen times. I feel like the Steelers have built a team that once you get a quarterback, you're going to be okay. You're going to, as long as it works, which it's not guaranteed to, but as long as it does, you did it. The Steelers built the offensive line. They built the defense. They found the wide receiver. If George Pickens is going to play and you can replace him next year, you found the wide receivers. You have the tight ends. You have the running backs. You just need a quarterback. That's all you need. And last year they didn't have it. They knew how close they were to needing one. This year is it going to click, and are you going to get Aaron Rodgers? And then next year is it going to stay together and be just as good or better? And are you going to have the next it at quarterback in the NFL draft? That's where they're at. I don't think they need to blow it up. I think they just need to find a quarterback, a real quarterback.
Let's go down to Jeff, who says, if all 3 defensive tackles, Grant, Harmon, and Nolan, are there at 21, who is your pick and why?
My pick is Kenneth Grant. Michigan guy. He's an absolute stud, run stuffer, could play right in the middle at nose tackle. I just think, and then move over to defensive tackle when Cam Heyward retires. I just think if it works out so well, he's a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really like Walter Nolan and Derek Harmon as well. I think both of them are absolute studs, and I think they're worthy of the 21st pick. Kenneth Grant, to me, is like a top 15 player in this draft, and I would draft him in the top 15. Here's the thing. I don't think he's going to fall. The more and more conversations I have, the more and more I feel like all 3 of these guys are going to be off the board before 21, which leaves the Steelers with options, probably a quarterback. And you got to start thinking about that stuff. But I would go Kenneth Grant out of these 3. I think he's exactly what the Steelers need right now and later, and is a great piece to help solidify the run defense.
Let's go over to Chris, who says, the Steelers are simping, and it makes me sick. We have waited long enough for Aaron Rodgers. If the Steelers trade down and grab a quarterback, that's what I'm all for.
Hey, there are a lot of people that feel the same way. The Steelers fan bases, I don't even think they're evenly split. I'm very interested to see what the reaction is once he does sign, because Mitch Trubisky signed and Steelers fans were not happy about it, and they voiced their displeasure. I mean, I was the guy, I asked him in his introductory press conference, hey, Mitch, there are a lot of fans that were not happy that you were the guy. What's your response to them? And I think we're going to have to ask Aaron Rodgers the same thing. Like, hey, dude, there are a lot of people, probably more people that are upset that you're here than are happy that you're here. What do you have to say to these people? The fan base is definitely growing impatient. You got to understand it. You got to get it. I think it grows or goes deeper than just Aaron Rodgers himself. I think it's the whole quarterback situation as a whole. But you are not alone, Chris. You are not alone.
Chris also says and wants to know, would franchise tagging Pickens in 2026 be a good idea?
Look, at again, I think with George Pickens, it's not about next year. It's just about this year. Is he willing to play without a deal? If he's willing to play without a deal, you play him, and you play it by year next offseason. If he looks good, if there's no issues, if he's willing to be franchise tagged and play under the franchise tag, if all those conversations could be had and he's in a good light with the organization at the end of the 2025 season, why not? Why not keep George Pickens around? He's worth keeping around. Talent-wise, it's going to be very hard to replace George Pickens. It's the rest of that stuff that you just don't know what's going to happen. If he's willing to play this year, if he's down to play this year without a deal, I mean, all doors are open for the 2026 offseason and where they go from there.
Steelers fan says, start Mason Rudolph and draft a backup in the third day of the draft.
I mean, I think the Steelers have some idea of a plan in the NFL draft. I think that's one of those ideas, is a 4th round quarterback that, is on their radar. But the more we keep moving forward, the more conversations that are being had of how many quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4? Maybe 5 if somebody falls in love with Will Howard. I think all these conversations are going to grow, and a lot of things are going to change over the next 4 weeks, and the Steelers are going to be amongst those teams that are heavily talked about when it comes to a quarterback. So right now, I think their backup plan does not necessarily include Mason as their first option. I do think he's on the list. I think a third-day quarterback is on their option as a backup right now. But again, I don't know where on the list of priorities that is where we currently sit.
Let's go to Broderick, who says, if you were 42 years old, do you sign a deal with the Steelers and endure training camp in Latrobe, or do you just retire?
I just retire. If I was in the NFL, I'm retiring at 35. I just made $150 million. I'm good, dog. Like I'm chilling. But that being said, I'm not in it for the love of the game. I was in it to make 100. I'm on the outside looking in. My outside is selling me $150 million by 35. I'm chilling. I'll go be Andrew Luck, coach a high school team, enjoy my days in some local little town and have a great time. That's what I would do, do a lot of fishing. Instead, Aaron Rodgers, he's in it for the heart of the game, man. There's only one reason you play to 42, and that's because you can't give it up. So I think I'm very interested to see what Aaron Rodgers would be like in Latrobe. I am very interested to see what, but again, I was very interested to see what Russ would be like in Latrobe, and there wasn't anything real crazy. So maybe, and I think, if you're going to pick between the two, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, who do you think would have a harder time adapting to Latrobe? I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Latrobe, but there's not much going on there. There's a lot of woods that you could go sit in and have a good time. Campus gets real quiet at night. So I think Aaron might actually fit in really well with the Latrobe lifestyle.
We got two sides of the coin for these next two comments. First with Chris, let's be honest, guys. No quarterback can win here if Tomlin doesn't allow him to throw over the middle of the field. Tomlin and the OC need to change for the Steelers to win.
Look, and I disagree with both of these, but I think I more heavily agree or disagree with the offensive coordinator. I'm not out on Arthur Smith. Thrown over the middle of the field, spot on there, Chris, 100%. There's no that's malpractice. That is ridiculous. That's the wildest thing I've ever heard for a head coach to say, hey, QB, don't throw over the middle of the field. Just remove that from your game. What? How did we get here? The thing with Arthur Smith is that Arthur Smith worked with a quarterback who is so far down on the Steelers list that they signed Mason Rudolph and are waiting while Aaron Rodgers just does his little thing for as long as they possibly can. There is not even an urge to go sign Russell Wilson. There's not even an urge. There's nothing. Everything I have heard, you could go back weeks ago and you look up clips from this show, and I say it constantly. The Steelers, when talking to anybody, when talking to any human being, and you bring up Russell Wilson, it's like, yeah, Russ is he's still an option. I guess he's there. I just don't think I don't think Arthur Smith was ever given an opportunity in year one to succeed. He was bouncing around quarterbacks like there was no tomorrow. Those quarterbacks were super limited, and he had no wide receivers. So I'm excited to see what he could do with an actual offense, because in the past, he's looked pretty good with an actual offense.
Let's go down to Mike, who's on the other side of this argument, says, I love this team, but I hope one day everybody gets their wish and Mike Tomlin goes to another team and people can see how bad things can really get. #Browns.
Yeah, I will always stand on the side of, I think change is good sometimes if you could make that change correctly. If the Steelers fired Mike Tomlin and hired Ben Johnson this offseason, I think there's a good shot that things work out for them. But just to fire Mike Tomlin is such a baseless claim. Like, it's just fire him for what? What are you firing him for? To go get a bad head coach and begin what is an awful situation for any NFL team. It's very difficult to find a good head coach. It's very difficult. I think Steelers fans would be stubborn enough to say, Mike, screw Mike, he wasn't winning anyways. But I think at the same time, it would be a little bit of a Ben situation where a lot of people were looking for Ben to leave at the end. And once he left, everybody's like, oh my God, I didn't realize how bad it was. This was way worse than I imagined. And I think that's what would happen with Mike Tomlin.
Let's go to ND Joe, who says, Noah and Nick love the show. At this point, it's time to move on from Aaron Rodgers, snag Russell Wilson for 2 years, and get a QB first round next year. Who knows? We might even move up.
I think they would move up next year. If they don't get a quarterback in the first round this year, which I don't know if I'm in the belief that they're going to yet, but the conversation is being had pretty frequently. So you have to, just follow the conversation. Next year, I could see the Steelers piling as much as they can and moving up in the draft and just saying, we can't strike out this time. It's got to be a big one. Let's see what happens, and shooting for the stars. I could see that one happening. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, they will wait it out with Aaron Rodgers because they just really don't want Russell Wilson. They really, really don't want Russell Wilson.
Let's go to Maddie, who says, do you think it's worth a first round pick on Jackson Dart? I'm starting to think more and more that he could be good. Also, are you still calling people? Members only. Love the show, by the way.
Yeah, definitely still making my list. We get a lot of emails every day. So, I appreciate you guys making it through, and I appreciate you guys being super patient with the calls. I've actually called 2, sometimes 3 people in a day, depending on how crazy it is. The last week has not been as easy to call multiple people. So definitely making it through, and appreciate all you guys as always. I think Jackson Dart is, he's a very tough conversation right now, because you have to look at it as Jackson Dart is a quarterback, and quarterbacks at this time of the year always look more appealing than maybe they actually are. And that's what's happening with Jackson Dart. It's what's happening with Tyler Shuck. It's what's happening possibly with Will Heyward now. There will be names, and Jackson Dart is the start of these names that just build momentum. They look more intriguing. They're a first-round quarterback. It starts to build and build and build, and you kind of get blinded by it. And I'm a little nervous that's where we are with Jackson Dart, because if you take me back 2 months ago, I'm saying Jackson Dart's not a first-round quarterback. Where we sit here today, the Steelers are out of options, and I think that skews your train of thought into saying maybe he is a first-round quarterback. I think he's got potential. I'm not going to act like he doesn't. I think he's got potential. But I am very cautious with saying that Jackson Dart is the right move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, unless they find themselves in a situation where in the first round there's nobody else. There's nobody else there. Why not draft Jackson Dart? What are you gonna lose? A running back that you could get in the third round? Okay, go get Jackson Dart. I think that's a conversation to be had, but I think it's a very cautious conversation that has to be had.
Another quick shout out to Egyptian Roughneck, who says, left my voicemail today for tomorrow's call-in show.
Shout out. I hope that in it you listed off your resume so that I could just play it right to the Steelers security guards at UPMC and get you in there as quick as possible.
Let's go to Danny, who says, nice to catch you fellas live again. Makes the drive from Annapolis, Maryland to Delaware go much faster. Do you think the Jets illegally tampered with Justin Fields?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes. Yeah. The answer is yes. You know, I'm not accusing them of anything. This is a question and I'm answering the question honestly. Yes. Why? Like every team, why wouldn't they? You know, where did that come from? And I'm not saying that they had an offer on the table. I'm not saying Fields was told anything directly from the Jets. What I'm saying is 2 times this offseason, the NFL the entire NFL agency and the entire NFL GM staff are in one location. Nobody's talking. I mean, You're talking. You know what I mean? What else are you talking about? I go to Indianapolis, leave Indianapolis with more information than I've had in months. We could do a whole show. We do shows every single day on the things I hear every single day out there. You know how low on the totem pole I am? Do you know how, I'm not even on the totem pole. I'm waiting on the bottom for my place on the totem pole. That's where I am. People are having conversations left and right, big ones. So you got to believe, you know, maybe it wasn't the own Woody Johnson, but maybe it was somebody just saying, yeah, you know what? I think that, I think we'd be able to give him 2 years with some guaranteed money. You know, I think we'd be able to give him somewhere around 40 grand. I think that's possible. I think those conversations happen for sure. So short answer, yes. Accusing them of anything? No, just answering the question.
I will say, it feels like you and David Mulligetta should be on the same playing field. I'm just in my head.
I think that when I walk by David Mulligetta or any of those people, you know, Drew Rosenhaus or anybody in Indianapolis, you walk by them going, oh my gosh. And they walk by you going, I don't know if that's just a random person on the street or if that's somebody that I, you know, have ever read an article on ever in my life.
Let's go to Steven, who says the Steelers love drama. So yes, they will trade up in the 2026 draft and go big for a quarterback while the draft is in Pittsburgh. I'll just be happy when we get someone.
I think the Steelers will go big in the 2026 NFL draft. If they don't go big in this draft, and again, I'm torn on that situation. You know, I think next year is the better idea, but I'm not ruling it out that they wouldn't this year, but I do think they'd go all in. And I think going all in next year is the right move. Go get your quarterback. Don't take any chances. Move up to get them. You know what I mean? Like, you filled in the rest of it. Just go get nothing's more important than a quarterback right now. It's not like you're going to bring him into an offense that doesn't have an offensive line or a running game or any of that. You'd have all of that in place. Just go get a quarterback. I think it's the right move for the Steelers next season.
Let's jump to Egyptian Roughneck. And I know we touched on this at the beginning of the show, but that was nearly an hour ago. So spark note it for us. Thoughts on the Juan Thornhill signing?
Yeah, I think it's a better upgrade or it's a bigger upgrade for DeMonte KZ. You know, he's a bigger guy, can play run support and in the pass. He's got some starting experience in Cleveland, so he knows the AFC North. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Like, I think it works. I like the Thornhill signing. I think this is the upgrade for the defense that takes them to another level. And what I mean by that is, like, the Steelers don't have many holes outside of a starting defensive tackle right now, if any holes that they need to fill in the rest of the offseason. They've set themselves up pretty nice for 2025. Let's
go back to Steven, who says, is Beanie Bishop still on the roster? And if so, how would he feel about practicing against Aaron Rodgers every week?
He is on the roster. I don't know how he'd feel, but the truth is he wouldn't practice much against Aaron Rodgers. Luckily, these guys, you know, in training camp, they go on one-on-one a lot. Once the season starts, it's a lot of Skylar Thompson. It's a lot of Skylar Thompson throwing that football in practice. So good for Beanie Bishop. He is still on the roster. Would like to get his thoughts once Aaron Rodgers is around. Oh, especially because he picked him off twice. That's where Steven's going with this. Yeah, the
Yes.
brain didn't click there. More interested, to be honest, in whether or not Aaron notices the footballs that are signed by Aaron Rodgers in Beanie Bishop's locker.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, "Hey, Nick and Noah, any update on Cole Holcomb?" No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on Mike Tomlin's legacy? Do you think he will always be remembered as a coach that inherited a Super Bowl team?
I mean, I hope not. I don't think that should ever be the case. I never looked at Mike Tomlin as a coach that inherited a Super Bowl team. Do you know how hard it is to go back to a Super Bowl after you've won a Super Bowl? It is very hard. It's very hard. Mike Tomlin kept this thing together. And then the second Super Bowl, which was a much better team than the first Super Bowl, they should have won it, and that was Mike Tomlin's team. That he did that one. There were a couple of pieces here and there, some big ones, obviously, but he put the remainder of that team together. I hope that his legacy doesn't go down like that. Like I think the disrespect for Mike Tomlin sometimes is wild. There's a good conversation to be had about whether or not he should be the Steelers head coach. And there's a good conversation to be had about whether or not he should be on the hot seat. When it comes to legacy, like anybody who sits around saying Mike Tomlin is shouldn't go down as a Hall of Famer, like, I don't know. I think you're crossing a line, and I think you're just kind of hating, to be honest, just to hate.
Let's go to Egyptian Roughneck again, who says, "Arrested a guy today, had a Browns jersey. He trash talked my Steelers jacket, and now he accidentally, very important word here, has a knot on his head."
I'm not gonna address the arrest.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, wild to be talking smack while getting arrested. You know what I mean? Wild situation. Never seems to lead to a situation that's better than the one that you were in before being arrested. So just not wild times.
Let's go to Carl Spackler, who says, "Keep trade cut with a twist. It's keep trade to a rival or ban from history. Tomlinisms, the cower chin/stare, or Chuck Noll's legacy."
Oh, I mean, you're keeping Chuck Noll's legacy. That is the legacy, right? That's a tough one to give anywhere else. I mean, the Steelers are not the Steelers without Chuck Noll. That's not. Could you imagine if the Browns were the Browns because of Chuck Noll? That'd be disgusting. That'd be awful. Trade to a rival. I think I'm trading the cower chin to a rival only because I think Tomlinisms are really freaking cool and hilarious and set us up for great situations.
I can't give you all the ingredients to the hot dog. You might not like it.
Could you imagine if Kevin Stefanski said that? Like, that would suck. That would be so brutal. So I'm giving cower to hopefully Cincinnati because they didn't win a Super Bowl. So you got to feel better about that one. And then I'm banning Tomlinisms for life from history, just because it would be way too hard to, like, if John Harbaugh was that cool. No, that would suck. That'd suck. So that's my order there on that one.
Let's go to Mac, who says, "Do you think Minka should be restructured now?"
Yeah, I think that's a possibility though. This offseason. I think him, TJ, Alex Highsmith, and I want to say DK Metcalf most likely. No, but he hasn't. I don't know if he probably did sign his extension already. Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt, who's going to get an extension, Minka. I'm missing people, but there are names there that could be restructured. Minka is one of them, definitely.
And let's close it out with this one from Reginald. "Hey, Nick and Noah, what do you think about the hilarious nickname to the Steelers wide receiver duo of DK Metcalf and George Pickens, the quote, Super Crash Out Brothers?"
I like it. I'm a big fan, to be honest with you. I think it's fitting for one of them and hilarious. I don't know. I'm a fan. I think they'd be into it, to be honest. I think if you went up to George, I don't think it, I think he'd be in on it. I'm a big fan of the Crash Out Bros, the Super Crash Out Bros, which is definitely fitting for this situation.
I mean, that's a heck of a t-shirt design too. just the Super Mario Bros, but instead have it be GP and DK. I mean, we'd have to definitely give some dough to Reginald.
Yeah. Reginald will be getting a cut.
He'll be getting a check.
Yeah, 100%. I like the name. I think that's hilarious.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. For those of you who forgot, go call into our AST call-in show for tomorrow morning. Give me your best question. I'm excited to dive into those tomorrow before it drops. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.